Hello YouTube, Sidekick here with another installment of the Iron Bomber's Guide to the DCS Galaxy. Today we're back in the A-29B Super Tucano. We're not going to spend a lot of time on the whiteboard today. We're just going to go out in the aircraft and we're going to take a look at the SMS page, the stores management page, because it's been updated and now has full control of ripple size and the distribution across the pylons, so it's worth taking a look at. And this is going to be important today because we're going to be looking at using the 2.75-inch rockets. And so we're going to go out to the range and we're going to test them out. And we're going to do that because in the next video in this series, we're going to be going out on a mission in the Super Tucano, and we're really going to need those rockets. So let's get started. Okay, here we are getting our flaps down and our trim set. And then we're going to want to put the up-front controller in air-to-ground mode so that we can look at the SMS page. Okay, first we'll press the button labeled SGL for single. This will control the number of pylons that we release in any drop. We can set it to single pair or salvo, which would use all of the pylons equipped with a given weapon. Next, we'll press the button labeled RP01, which sets the ripple quantity. It takes us to another page where we just use the digits from 0 to 9 to set the number of weapons that will be released each time we press the button. Now, in the case of rockets at least, this will be the number of rockets that will launch from each launcher. So we select 6 and press enter, and we note that when we return to the main SMS page, the ripple size is set to 12, and that's because we have the 2 outer pylons selected, and we're going to launch 6 from each launcher. And now we're good to go. All right, so let's get started on a takeoff roll here. We'll put this back to the instrument page, back to nav mode on the upfront computer. And we'll throttle up, and off we go. Oops, a bit of a steering problem there. So one thing I should note is that the version that I am flying is 0.1.7b, which even by the time this video comes out is probably not the latest version. So there may be some differences based on the newer version, but this was the version that I had when I recorded the video. So we're well on our way. Get the gear up. And start gaining some altitude before we make the turn for the range. As I have said before, the Super Tucano is a very nice flying aircraft. It's very responsive to the controls, very agile. I find the layout of the controls very easy. The HUD is easy to understand. And I think it's really quite easy to deploy the weapons, both the bombs and the rockets, in the testing that I've been doing. So I think it's going to be a great little iron bomber, and you'll see in the mission that we're going to fly hopefully next week. It can get into some pretty tight spaces that I'm not sure you'd be able to get to with almost any other aircraft. So I think we're going to be able to do some things we can't do any other way with the Super Tucano, so that's going to make it kind of a fun aircraft to have in our arsenal. Okay, so we're starting to level out here, find our way out to the No Mods iron bombing range. If you haven't seen this range before, it's a range that I made with just elements of the DCS stock game. So there's no mods required for the range to work. If you want a copy of the No Mods base mission, you can get a hold of it on my Discord server, and you can also get a hold of the static template and also the range script that runs that gives you your results when you drop bombs or fire rockets on the range. Okay, so we're just getting fenced in to make sure we're in air-to-ground mode, and we've got the master switch on, and now because we're in air-to-ground and we're in the air, we're getting our CCIP symbol for the rockets, which is the big circle with the pipper in it. So we're going to do what we usually do when we go out to the range here. We're just going to do a trim run before we start making passes. And the purpose of the trim run is to try and make sure that we don't, that the aircraft is trimmed out well, so we don't have to use a lot of stick force when we're doing the actual bombing run. So we go into a full power slight dive over the range and try to check the trim. And if we're trimmed out well then we should be reasonably well trimmed out when we actually dive in to do a run, and then we won't be fighting the stick to try and keep a constant dive angle. Because, of course, if you follow the Iron Bomber's guide to the DCS Galaxy, you'll know that being very quiet on the stick when you're trying to drop iron bombs is really one of the keys to success. So that's why we want to make sure we get trimmed out right anytime we go out to the range in any aircraft. It really helps. Just experimenting with trim a little bit here. I think I've got it just about right. And so we'll pull up and turn to the left and go around and do our first run. So I do like the way the Super Tucano climbs out and the way it turns. It's actually quite easy to do nice tight circles around the range, which is one thing I can't necessarily say from all of the jet aircraft that I use. Range practices are actually fairly short in the Tucano because it's pretty easy to do multiple runs without needing to take a long time to get back to altitude or to take a long run at the target. So there you can see we're abeam the target and we're starting to come around. So we'll take a fairly standard approach this time, probably give us between a 35 and a 40 degree dive angle if we do this right. So fairly steep. So the thing about rockets is that the steepness of the dive does affect the dispersion of the pattern. So if we want to spread them out a little more, we can take a shallower dive. We might try that. Important to remember to get the radar altimeter on, so the CCIP is accurate. Okay, here we are lining up. Now the Pipper is fairly far up close to the flight path vector, so we're having to push a little bit more than I want to keep it down. There's our first 12 rockets, and they're a little bit short. So, which is a thing we found with this version of the Tucano, with the CCIP, with the bombs as well, all went a little short. So we'll just do another run, and next time we'll just aim a little bit long. I'm sure that fixing the CCIP is one of the things that's on the list. In fact, it may already have been fixed in the latest version, but I don't have that at the time. Didn't have that at the time when I flew this mission. So. And this time we'll just go around and we'll try a little bit flatter this time. See how the rockets fall if we don't dive quite so steeply. We'll go a little bit farther out to the south here before we come around. Start to pull around the range again. That looks like it will be a little bit shallower dive angle. And we'll roll in right about there. And same thing. I'm needing to get used to the rockets. They're fairly close to the flight path vector, so you have to start below the target and let them work their way up to it to get a good, accurate release. Okay, well, we released right on again that time. I just wanted to check in. Yes, even at shallower angle, the rockets are still landing a little bit short. So let's go around this next time, and we'll actually put an offset in and see if we can actually So once again, it's pretty effortless in the Tucano to do multiple runs on the range. It's one of the things I really like about it. I also really appreciate the excellent visibility out of this canopy. Compared to something like the A4 or the SU-25 in particular, I don't find that I'm ducking and diving and hunting and pecking with my head to try and see the target around the canopy. It's really quite easy. So we'll go back to a fairly bit more standard approach this time. A little higher dive angle than the last time, and we'll just aim sort of for put the pipper around the back of the circle and see how. So those were 2 rounds of 12 rockets, or 6 from each pod. So we're probably down to 1 more salvo, essentially, from each of the outer launchers, because they come with 19 rockets, and we fired 12. Fire another 6 from each launcher, and then we'll be done with the outer pods, more or less. All right. So rolling in again, a little bit steeper. Try and aim for the back of the target this time. Walk up and much better, much better. Looks like we walked them right across the center of the target. So that's about where we want to make our aim point. So that's good to know. We need to add about between 40 and 50 meters. Okay, I think the other thing we'll do when we get a chance here is we'll actually change our ripple quantity. Basically, I want to fire all the rockets that I have on this next pass, and we'll call it a day. So let's change the ripple quantity to 20. So it's easy enough to enter a 2-digit number on the SMS page. We just hit a 2 and then a 0, and then we hit enter. And now ripple quantity is 20. So it should fire the 2 from the 2 outer pylons, and then it should fire 1 from each of the outer pylons, and then it's going to fire 19 each from the 2 inner pylons, and we're going to be done. So this time, let's go over and take one of the smaller targets on the other side of the range. So we'll just go a little bit farther to the south here. See what damage we can do to one of these triple targets. Right about there. And we'll roll it in. All right, roll it out a little bit below the target. Let the pipper come up to the target. We're just going to go a little bit beyond it. A little beyond it, right about there. So you can see we fired all 20 rockets. Nice big salvo. Looked like that was pretty successful. All right, I think we've got our rocketry dialed in. I think we're going to be ready for the mission next time. So let's just go up here, do a U-turn. This is one thing I love doing in the Super Tucano. It's got a lot of rudder authority, so you can do a lovely rudder wing over turn. And we'll just go around the top and come back down. I love that maneuver. Pretty hard to do that in just about at least any of the other aircraft I fly in DCS. All right, well, there we can still see the fires burning from the last salvo. That was a big success, I think. Right, well, there you have rockets in the Super Tucano. Next time we go out and fly the Super Tucano, we're going to go fly it for real in a mission. I hope you take the opportunity to tune in then. If you're enjoying these videos, please subscribe to the channel. It's the best way to keep them coming. For now, this is Sidekick, signing off.